Today we're gonna unravel the mystery behind my range test. Because at first it looked like my drone simply had poor range, but after looking a bit deeper I found that there maybe have been much more going on. CE mode, interference from nearby antennas, and maybe even a loss of direct line of sight. All of these things could have affected the result. So in this video I want to find out what really happened. Was it the drone, was it the controller, or was it the location itself? As you can see, I started with a range test. This time I found a slightly higher location with a clear line of sight. So I'm just sitting here in the grass, keeping the controller pointed at the drone and letting it fly further out. The goal is simple. I want to find out if the problem was really the drone's range or if my previous location was the real issue. First I start looking into the rumor about the controller power being reduced. And as it turns out, that part is actually true. Here in the Netherlands we don't use the FCC rules like they do in the United States, we use CE mode, which means the controller is allowed to transmit with less power. So when you see those huge range numbers in the specs, you have to remember those are usually under perfect conditions. Clear line of sight, no obstacles, very little interference, and the controller pointed perfectly at the drone. In the real world, especially here in Europe, the usable range can be much lower. The location itself is also very important. During my previous range test I was standing lower than Renen, so as the drone flew further away, it slowly disappeared behind the church and behind the town itself. And that means it didn't just lose visual line of sight, it probably also lost radio line of sight. So maybe the first test wasn't a real fair range test at all. Maybe it was actually a test of what happens when you lose line of sight. The last point is probably the most important one, interference. During my previous test I later found out that I was standing very close to several 4G and 5G antennas. There were KPN, Odido antennas right next to my location, Vodafone was also nearby, and even inside the church there appears to be a fixed transmitter. Now these antennas are not necessarily using the exact same frequency as my drone, but they can still create a lot of radio noise in the area. And that noise can make it much harder for the controller and the drone to keep a clean connection. So when you combine that with CE mode, lower transmit power and loss of line of sight, it suddenly makes a lot more sense when my range dropped so quickly. Maybe the drone wasn't the problem at all, maybe the location was the problem. In this test I wanted to fly until the battery reached about 60%, but before I could even get that far, the drone already started warning me about the battery was getting too low to continue safely. So at around 1700 meters I decided to turn around. And this is actually the important part. As you can see, the controller still had full signal at that point. No range warning, no weak connection, no scary signal drop. So compared to my previous test, this is a huge difference. The drone didn't turn around because of the signal, it turned around because of the battery. And that tells me something important. With a better location, clear line of sight and less interference, the range problem was basically gone. And now comes the exciting part of today's test. Apparently I had some headwind on the way back. So at this point, the question was no longer about range. The question became, can I actually make it back? The drone was still connected perfectly, but the battery was dropping faster than I expected. And for the first time during this test, I actually started to get a little worried. In the end, I did make it back, but only with 5% battery left. So yes, the range problem seems to be solved in this location, but this test also reminded me of something very important. Getting far away is one thing, getting safely back is the part that really matters. So interesting conclusion. I did do the test this time with the Neo 2, and at the end, yeah, it was not the range of the controller anymore, it was the range of the battery. So for the next test, when I actually will test the range for the RC2 and the RC3 again, I will use my Mini 5 Pro, because yeah, distance wise that's a way better match for the battery than the Neo. And then I can draw some real conclusion on how far or what the difference will be between the RC2 and the RC3. So see you again in the next video.